Today, we're talking about how to pay off your debt. I'm going to share with you as transparently as possible how I paid off over $50,000 in my student loan and consumer debt in a year. Actually, it was $52,441.59. I am so proud. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Gwen, and this podcast is all about creating an awesome life. In my experience, having debt really takes away some of the joy, a lot of the joy, because it's always in the back of your mind, like an anchor kind of holding you down. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. One of the reasons I'm doing it now is that I recently saw a pretty alarming stat about the state of debt for people. I found a stat from the US that the total personal debt has reached an all-time high of 14.96 trillion, which is like, what? How much even is that? So in terms of each average American or average adult in the US, they each carry $58,604, and 77% of American households have some type of debt. So most of us, many of us are in this right now, and it can feel so devastating. The hope is gone. Like you just don't know how to even begin. So I'm so excited to share my story with you. So just to share some context, I paid off my debt almost 7 years ago, and I have kept it off. Sounds like I lost weight or something. So right now, I actually do have a mortgage. So I technically have mortgage debt. And I'm kind of sharing this to both remind myself of what's possible and maybe apply these same principles to the mortgage, and also just share that it is possible for you, if you're in debt, to get out of it and breathe a little bit easier. Now, something I didn't realize when I first started was paying off debt has become one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever had in my life. When I first started it, I was dying for an easy solution. Can I win the lottery? Can my second cousin twice removed pass away and I receive some kind of inheritance? Can I ask my rich friends if they can lend me some money and then I'll pay them back instead of paying the interest? I was looking for the shortcut right off the jump. I was looking for that magical manifestation moment. And if you're there, I completely understand, but also hear me when I say that it can actually go from despair to fun to pay off the debt when you start getting it going. So here's how the podcast episode is going to go. I'm going to share with you the start. I'm going to share with you a little bit more about my situation, the methods and tools that I used, the momentum that started to build, and then the celebration. So that's how it's going to go down today. So let's take it back to the start. Okay. So I had been carrying debt since I went to school, since I went to university. I had about, I think, $30,000 on my student loan debt when I left school. And I figured I'd pay it off. Once I started paying off the minimum payments, but then as I started to grow a business, I had a sole proprietorship at the time, and just wanting to be independent, be free, I started to live a little bit beyond my means. So I started to maybe I wanted to live by myself in Toronto, and I could afford it, but then I also wanted to travel as well. So I would kind of add in expenses here and there that I couldn't really afford, and just figured, oh, one day I'll pay it off, until it all kind of came to a head where I went on a trip to Italy with some good friends. And I remember I knew I was really starting to run low on money, but when the idea of going to Italy was shared with me, it was kind of like, oh yeah, we'll just go stay at my friend's parents' house like the entire time. So it was essentially just, you need a flight there, and then you need to pay for the food and like going out. I'm like, you know what? I got that. I can handle that. But then when we got to Italy, we actually kind of deviated from the original plan and became proper tourists in Italy. And I just thought, uh-oh. So I was a little bit stressed, a lot stressed, and trying to figure out because my credit cards were hitting the max. I was trying to figure out ways. I'm transferring money from this credit card to that credit card, and like trying to figure out how I'm going to, be okay on this trip. And then what am I going to do when I come back? So that was kind of the moment of, oh my God. And so, and at that time I was running my own business, which was making money, but not enough. And I also was so in that fear-based mindset about money that I was so focused on that versus growing the business that it was just not a good vibe. So what did I do? Well, first of all, I had to get a job. Many people believe that being an entrepreneur is the dream, the ultimate dream, that it's the only way you can have real freedom in your life. When I got a job, I felt more free than I had been as an entrepreneur. I craved at that time a team, the stability, the going to a place at a certain time, the paycheck that comes in. So if you're an entrepreneur and they're thinking, oh, I got to go back to a job, I'm taking a step back. Absolutely not. You could be giving yourself so much more freedom and having so much more of a contribution by making yourself well. And then you can work on your business on the side. Yeah. So step one was actually find a job. Now, just to share about that, if you're in that position, or you can skip to the next step if you're not in that position, I basically really wanted to find a job that was still a fit for me and not something that I absolutely hated. So I really tried to solve my own problem. And at the time, money and health and wellness were two big buckets that were really interesting to me. So I applied to jobs in health and wellness and in money, and ended up getting a job in e-commerce in a field making online courses, which is what it was really an ultimate dream job. That's another episode for another day, but I got a job. Now, this job paid me $65,000 a year as a base salary. And then it was a job in tech. So this was a bit of an unfair advantage in the sense that we had the perks of, you could get free coffee at the office. You could get lunch at the office. You could get leftovers from lunch for dinner. It was funny because some of us that were going to get like dinner leftovers, I'm like, are they in the same boat as me? Or like, can't afford food. And I also had some stock options that would mature within a year. So this was essentially my start. In order to really be initiated into, I'm going to pay off my I'm going to pay off my debt, I needed to get a job that I could actually at least plant the seed that I could see where money could come from to actually pay for it. Now, the next step, just to share with you a little bit more about my situation, was before getting that job, I'd been living on my own in a condo in downtown Toronto. I gave that up and actually started to rent a couch from my friend. And so, yeah, I started this nice new job, and I'm basically sleeping on my friend's couch, paying, I think, like $800 a month to borrow her couch, and kind of was like, through that year of paying off debt, really rent was the most expensive thing. So I tried to do whatever I could to keep that low. I actually also had a friend who was on The Bachelor Canada, and she let me rent out her place when she was on The Bachelor. And then I posted on Facebook that I was looking for a place, and an old friend I worked with in the restaurant business said her friend was looking for a place. And then eventually I settled in and lived with my boyfriend and his friend, Chris, who I so appreciate, love them, married my boyfriend, appreciate Chris for life for letting me move in with them so I could have a rent that costs less than $1,000, which could really allow me to make true progress on paying off the student loan. So humbling, to be sure, but it was a way that I could do it within the year. So if you have a standard of living, you don't want to lose your place, it might just take maybe a little bit longer. Okay. So once I got the job, you would think, oh, great, I'll start paying it off right away. Absolutely not. My nervous system was completely shot. I needed this job was a really big, expansive, exciting job. I didn't have the mental capacity to start paying off debt and like figuring it all out and even putting it all down to paper. How that started was a couple months into the job. I my work set up this thing called Sidekicks, where you get to meet different people at the company and just see, what are they up to? What do you do? And I met a director of engineering, and he was also training to be a life coach. And I don't want to say his name because I don't know if it's public, if he's publicly being a life coach now, or if it was something he was experimenting with. But we met, and he told me, I guess I was open enough, and he told me that he was trying to be a life coach. He was looking for a few people to be like the test people so he could get his certification. And I just thought, absolutely, please, director of engineering, who money is probably not an issue, teach me, help me. And we started we had a couple of sessions together. And I remember being like, I wouldn't ever say my actual thing that I wanted, which was to pay off my debt. 'Cause I'm like, this is so weird to tell a coworker, like, hey, I'm in a lot of debt. How do I pay it off? But eventually he cracked me, and I told him, hey, this is what I am genuinely struggling with and would love to figure out. And his first kind of prompt to me to get this going was he actually asked me, what do you think you should do? And I said, I should know how much money I owe as a starting point. So that was a real breakthrough moment, where I went home, got the Excel spreadsheet out, figured out for the credit cards that I have, what's the interest fee on the credit cards. I put it all on a spreadsheet, and it was around $48,000. And I just thought, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we are starting. Okay. Yeah. So it went up to 52,000 and change with the interest over that time. So what next? Probably came down to a bit of prayer, like, hey, I need a miracle life, like throw me a bone. Like, I don't know the exact moment that it happened, but I want to talk to you now about the method of paying off the money. So I think it was me on YouTube, maybe like you, if you're watching this on YouTube, how do people do this? Like, how are people doing this? And I came across something called debt-free screens. What are those, you say? Well, it is from the company, the Dave Ramsey's company, where people go to a studio and they share how they paid off how they paid off their debt. And then they would say, I'm debt. Like, they would just scream it. And every time I would hear people do that, I would cry. I would tear up. The freedom, the joy that they had when they paid off their debt. I just thought, I have got to do that. Who is Dave Ramsey? What is going on here? And so I started to look into Dave Ramsey's work, and I came across his method, which is the baby step method. So Dave Ramsey, if you're not familiar, he is somebody that more than 25 years ago, he fought his way out of bankruptcy and millions of dollars in debt from real estate purchases and banks calling in loans, and it all kind of went awry. And he teaches a very simplified method of handling your money. He has an amazing course called Financial Peace University that 10 million people have taken. Wow. And he is on the radio and on podcasts and has 18 million listeners every week. So he's really getting that information out there and empowering people. So I decided I'm going to test out this method. I'm going to try it. Now, as you may also know, I work in the online course world. I've been making courses for over 10 years. And his curriculum is a holy grail North Star in terms of simplicity and effectiveness. So I am so in awe of how his team figured out how to make this. And they also have an ecosystem, a community. They have an app called the EveryDollar app, which I use to this day. And I also use an Excel spreadsheet. But I want to share with you just the steps in his method and talk a little bit about it. So step 1, save $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Step 2, pay off all debt except your house using the debt snowball. What this is listing your debts and paying them off smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate. Step 3, save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Step 4, invest 15% of your household income in retirement. These are kind of next level ones. Step 5, save for your children's college fund. Step 6, pay off your home early. Step 7, build wealth and give. But I want to kind of zone in on the beginning ones. So the reason why you want to save $1,000 is really to just kind of get a little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence in yourself that you can do this. Save that $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Now, this one was interesting, and I honestly kind of fought it at first, was list your debts smallest to largest and pay them off smallest to largest, regardless of interest rate. Why are we doing this? It seems reverse, like, oh, don't I want to tackle the huge one because there's so much interest being accrued? If you owe $20,000 on a credit card with 19.99% interest rate, don't we want to tackle that one first, not the $300 one on the 0%? It's a psychology tactic. It's a way where you want to prove to yourself, anchor yourself in success, anchor yourself in I can do this. So you pay off the smaller ones first. So you start to build that momentum, the momentum of I am paying things off. I am cutting up. I'm viscerally cutting up my credit card. I am making progress. So I followed that. I just said, you know what? My way doesn't work. My way of doing nothing or trying but not really following through doesn't work. I'm going to go all in on this. So that's the next step, the momentum. Okay. It's going all in. I would look at my spreadsheet once a month. I would use the EveryDollar app to track everything. And what you have to do if you want to pay off that amount of money in a year is do something they call being gazelle intense. That means, say, a gazelle is on the savannah and a lion is chasing after it. That gazelle needs to use all of its efforts to get away from that lion and get to safety. They can't keep that speed up forever. This is not a marathon. It's literally a sprint. It's 1 year or a couple years of your life where you are so focused on paying off the debt that nothing can stop you. I wasn't like that on day one, but as I started to make progress, absolutely I was in. I didn't do anything. My boyfriend cut my hair. I became plant-based because you can save like 1/3 of your money on if you don't eat meat. And I also got in kind of amazing shape. I quit drinking. That was both because I was using it as a tool to self-soothe, but it's also expensive. I quit drinking for that time. No clothes, no events, nothing. That sounds horrendous, I know, but I really, having at least like a job I could go to, and having a boyfriend that also he is, what do you call it? Thrifty guy, not like, oh, we need to go and do all these things. It was possible. So we all have different circumstances, but find a way to have the ability to have gazelle intensity. The only thing I did pay for was martial arts classes. I still actually no, I didn't pay for those. I just realized because I worked in tech, we had a bonus of you could pay for some exercise classes so you could be in good spirits to give your all to the to the company. So anyway, it was a pretty intense year, but it was so amazing because I started to see some really, really big things happen. A real kind of step change growth situation happened around the 6-month mark. So, I'm just plugging away, And then I actually started to do what Dave Ramsey talks about with tithing. So giving 10% of your income to him is the church. I don't go to a church weekly. So I was just literally at 10% of my income to just give to whoever popped up on my radar who had an event that needed a sponsorship or to give to a charity. Like I would just give it away. And I remember at this time, I thought, I need this money. I need the money to pay off my debt. But the month I decided to tithe 10%, that same month, a coworker had an amazing opportunity that she shared with me to teach a class at a university that she thought I would be perfect for, which was an extra couple $1,000s a month. So it was kind of one of those interesting things, become a little bit more generous, let go of the reins of scarcity, watch the abundance come in. So in recent times, I've kind of let go of being that 10% tithing because I have an irregular income, but it's coming back because I know only good things can happen if you are generous. And so part of the way I was also able to pay off the debt was also around the 6-7 month mark. I had some of my stock options become available. So I had like an extra $500 one month or $1,000 the next month that came in. And also just even around the holiday times, if anyone was like, what do you want? I'm like, money. And I also just didn't give gifts. I missed some things, but isn't it funny? A few years later, you don't even remember truly what you missed. It's just the joy of I'm out of that debt. So that was how I gained the momentum. Now let's talk about the celebration. This is something that I can't believe. Well, it's just fascinating to me. When I actually was super close to paying off the debt, it just felt like so natural. It didn't feel like, yay, I can't believe it. Oh my God. It just felt like, of course, a natural feeling, like natural feeling. It's funny. You think that, oh, when you get that close, you're going to be like scream, like the debt-free scream, like, oh my God. But I was just like, of course I'm here. So it's almost exciting when you first conjure the idea that I'm going to pay it off, because you know that if you have the dream to do it, you can do it. And so for me, the celebration was pretty low key. Like I went out for dinner, and it was just like a personal satisfaction of looking at my Excel spreadsheet and seeing the zero and just kind of like thinking to myself, girl, you did it. Like it was just a very personally rewarding journey. There was no next level celebration. It was just the journey at around the 6-month mark, when I decided I enjoyed paying this off, became a whole celebration. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but you want to enjoy your life. And so if you can accept that, hey, I want to enjoy paying this off, it becomes an amazing experience. So now I am so excited because I have a mortgage, and who says I'm excited to have a mortgage, but I know that I'm going to pay it off and pay it off early. And I am so excited to figure out how I'm going to do that. I'm essentially going to follow the same plan, because after, it's been 7 years or so, I stopped fully tracking everything, just kind of living lackadaisical, whatever. And I want to not be lackadaisical when it comes to paying off a mortgage. I don't want to have a mortgage for like 30, 25 years or whatever. No, absolutely not. We're not doing that. So I'm excited to figure out how the journey of paying it off. And I truly hope, oh my God, putting this out there, if I keep my podcast going, if I pay off the mortgage, I can share an episode of how I figured it out. If you figured out any ways of paying off your mortgage besides just like making a lot more money, like share in the comments. Let me know, because this is an exciting thing to figure out. So coming to the end of the episode, and I just want to remind you that if you are on this journey, you are not alone. If you're in a room, over 50% of the people probably have debt. And it's not always the people you expect who have it. Sometimes just because someone has a $200,000 salary doesn't mean that they're debt-free. Money coming in doesn't mean money is staying in. So just remember, you are not alone. If you have any questions, I'm thrilled to answer anything I can. Leave me a comment on YouTube, DM me on Instagram, and let's get this debt out of your life. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day.